My best friend, Ella, suddenly stopped talking to me and I found out it was because my dad fell in love with his marriage counselor who was actually Ella's mom, Dr. Lauren, and when everything exploded, they showed up at the pizza place where I worked on a date. So I had to serve them while my mom was building a revenge folder with evidence that got Dr. Lauren's therapy license suspended and both our families destroyed, but Ella and I secretly rebuilt our friendship using burner phones while our parents' lives fell apart. I still remember the exact moment my mom told me I couldn't see Ella anymore. Ella was my best friend since 2nd grade. We were inseparable. We've worn each other's undies and borrowed each other's socks. One time when she came on holiday with my family, there was only one bathroom, so I showered while she brushed her teeth and neither of us even felt uncomfortable. She was practically like my sister. So when she started ignoring me, it was a very big red flag. For 2 weeks, I tried calling her house, but no one picked up. Her mom used to drive us to dance class every Tuesday, but suddenly that stopped. At school, Ella sat with the theater kids even though she hated drama class. When I walked up to her locker, she turned and left without saying anything. The person who knew all my secrets, who I told everything to, was treating me like I was invisible. Nothing made sense because we'd been fine just days before. I kept replaying our last sleepover, wondering if I'd said something wrong, done something unforgivable without knowing it. My dad was acting weird too. He barely came home anymore. He had these evening therapy sessions twice a week, plus extra appointments on weekends. Mom spent most nights on the couch watching cooking shows with a glass of wine. They only talked when they had to, and even then it was super formal like strangers. School became torture after that. Ella's group started calling me names in the hallway. Someone put a note in my locker that said my family was disgusting, but I had no clue what they meant. Still, I felt sick reading it. Teachers noticed I was sitting alone at lunch and kept asking if everything was okay. I lied and said yes because what else could I say when I didn't even know what was wrong? Summer was the loneliest 3 months of my life. I saw Ella at the town carnival with her sister, but when I waved, she looked right through me. My hand stayed frozen in the air like an idiot while my heart shattered. Her mom saw me at the grocery store and switched checkout lines to avoid me. My parents fought constantly behind closed doors while pretending everything was normal when I was around. 7th grade started and nothing had changed except now mom had book club 4 nights a week, even though I never saw her reading. Dad claimed work was crazy, but his laptop stayed closed in his office. We ordered takeout most nights and ate in separate rooms. The house felt empty even when everyone was home. I missed the way things used to be so much it physically hurt. After that, I turned into a full detective. I wrote down every weird thing I noticed in this purple notebook. Dad leaving for appointments but coming back without his therapy workbook. Mom crying in her car after dropping me at school. Phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked in the room. I felt crazy but I didn't care because I needed to know what the F was going on. The first real hint came from Ella's cousin Liam, who sat next to me in science. He mentioned that his family was dealing with drama too, and that our situations were connected. When I asked what he meant, he got this guilty look and said his mom would unalive him for talking to me. But then he added that the adults were the ones who messed up, not us. Things started making more sense after that. Dad had been seeing Dr. Lauren for marriage counseling since last spring. She was Ella's mom, and mom thought it was great because we already knew her. Dad went alone when mom traveled for work, which happened a lot. He always seemed happier after those appointments, which mom said meant therapy was working. A sick feeling started growing in my stomach as pieces clicked together. Looking back, there were so many signs. Dad started dressing nicer for his sessions. He bought new cologne that he only wore on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Once I found a receipt in his car for lunch at a fancy restaurant downtown during what should have been his appointment time. 2 meals, 2 drinks. Everything became crystal clear at the winter band concert. My choir was performing and Ella played clarinet, so both families had to be there. It was the first time we'd all been in the same place since spring. I was trying to find mom after the show when I spotted Dad talking to Dr. Lauren near the exit doors. Something about how they stood made my stomach drop. They weren't doing anything wrong exactly, but the energy between them was all wrong. Too familiar, too intense. Mr. Lauren appeared with Ella and her sister. The second he saw Dad and Dr. Lauren together, his expression went cold. He walked over and whatever he said made Dad go pale. Dr. Lauren looked like she wanted to disappear. Mr. Lauren, Dr. Lauren's husband, guided his family out without another word. I saw Ella glance back at me once, and the look in her eyes wasn't hate, it was pity. That was somehow worse. That night, I sat on the stairs and listened to my parents fight for real. No more whispers or careful words. Mom kept asking how long it had been going on. Dad insisted nothing physical happened during the therapy sessions. Mom's voice cracked as she demanded to know if Dad loved her. He couldn't answer. The silence stretched so long I thought maybe they'd stopped, but then Mom started sobbing. Real, ugly crying that made my chest tight. Dad tried to explain that Dr. Lauren just understood him in ways Mom never could. That set Mom off worse. I pressed record on my phone, hands trembling so bad I almost dropped it. The screen shook as I captured Dad admitting he had feelings for Dr. Lauren, but insisting nothing physical happened during their sessions. He kept repeating that word, sessions, like it made everything okay. Mom wasn't buying it. She screamed at him to get out, to pack his things and leave tonight. My legs cramped from crouching on the stairs, but I didn't dare move. Dad's footsteps headed toward their bedroom. Mom followed, still yelling about trust and boundaries and how could he do this to their family. I crept back to my room and hid in the closet, watching through the crack as Dad threw clothes into a duffel bag. He grabbed his work shirts, the new cologne, his laptop, nothing else, like he'd been planning this. The front door slammed. Dad's car engine started. Mom's crying got quieter but didn't stop. I stayed in that closet for an hour, knees pulled to my chest, trying to process what just happened. My dad had feelings for my best friend's mom, his therapist. Everything made horrible sense now. Around midnight, Mom found me. She opened the closet door and saw me sitting there with my phone still clutched in my hands. Her face was puffy and red. We didn't say anything. She just sank down next to me on the closet floor and we cried together. Her tears soaked through my pajama shirt. Mine dripped onto her shoulder. The house felt different already, like Dad had taken something essential with him when he left. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A text from Ella. My mom told me everything. I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. I stared at those words until they blurred. Part of me wanted to text back immediately, but my fingers wouldn't move. Instead, I took a screenshot, then deleted the message. I couldn't deal with it yet. I lay in bed wondering when Ella found out. Was it tonight after the concert, or had she known for weeks while I was desperately trying to figure out why she'd abandoned me? Morning came too soon. Mom called us both in sick. Her from work, me from school. We sat at the kitchen table eating stale cereal in silence. Church bells rang from down the street, marking Sunday service. We used to go as a family sometimes. Dad would complain about waking up early, but he'd still put on his nice shoes and drive us there. Those simple Sunday mornings felt like they happened to different people. The doorbell made us both jump. Mom peered through the peephole and her whole body tensed. She opened the door just a crack. Mr. Lauren stood on our porch holding Dad's golf clubs. He wouldn't look Mom in the eye, just mumbled something about returning them. As he turned to leave, he whispered, "I'm sorry about your family," so quietly, I almost missed it. Mom closed the door and leaned against it like she needed the support. She spent the rest of the morning on the phone with divorce lawyers. I could hear her from my room, voice all business as she explained the situation. Meanwhile, I sat cross-legged on my bed with my laptop, Googling emotional affairs therapy ethics violations, and reading article after article. Turns out therapists aren't supposed to develop feelings for their patients. There are rules. Licenses can be revoked. My stomach churned as I realized how much trouble Dr. Lauren could be in. My phone lit up with a text from Dad. "This is between adults. Focus on school." Like I could just pretend my whole world hadn't exploded. Like I was supposed to care about homework when my family was falling apart. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and the case popped off. I left it there. Mom's voice got louder from downstairs. She'd found something on the credit card statement. A hotel charge from 2 months ago, the same day as one of Dad's supposed late therapy sessions. She was practically shrieking at whoever was on the phone. I pulled a pillow over my head, but I could still hear her. Everything felt too quiet when she finally stopped. I found myself in the living room, picking up the house phone. My fingers dialed Ella's number from memory. It rang once, twice. Then Mr. Lauren answered. His voice was gentle but firm when he recognized mine. "Please don't call here again," he said. Not mean, just tired. The line went dead. I sat on the floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. Real, body-shaking sobs that made my ribs hurt. The empty house echoed with it. No Dad, no Ella, just me and Mom and this horrible new reality. Monday meant school whether we were ready or not. I kept my head down in the hallways, but I could feel people staring. There's something really strange about how the adults handled this whole mess. Why did they make the kids suffer in silence for so long? The way Ella's mom kept seeing the narrator's dad for therapy, while this was clearly becoming something else, makes me. During third period, Mrs. Chen pulled me out of class. She was the school counselor, known for her gentle way of handling problems and the little cross necklace she always wore. She guided me to her office with a hand on my shoulder. "Your teacher mentioned you seemed upset," she said, settling into her chair. "Is everything okay at home?" I stared at the motivational posters on her wall. One had a kitten hanging from a tree branch. "Hang in there," it said. I wanted to laugh at how stupid it was. Instead, I lied. Told her everything was fine, just tired from staying up late studying. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes, but she let me go back to class. The rumors had already started. Ella's theater friends whispered in the hallways, heads turning when I walked by. Someone knew something. Maybe Ella had told them. Maybe their parents worked at Dr. Lauren's practice and heard gossip. Small towns don't keep secrets well. At home, Mom had gone into research mode. She'd printed out pages about professional ethics boards and dual relationship violations. She could lose her license, Mom said, waving the papers at me. There was something wild in her eyes, like she'd found a weapon. Tuesday was worse. I found Ella crying in the bathroom during lunch. Our eyes met in the mirror, and for a second I thought she might say something. Instead, she bolted out the door so fast she left her backpack behind. I stood there staring at it, recognizing the keychain I'd given her for her birthday. Wednesday brought a new crisis. Dad showed up in the school pickup line even though Mom had explicitly told him not to. I saw his car from the library window and my whole body went cold. He waved at me to come over. I shook my head. He got out of the car. Other parents started noticing the scene. I ran back inside and hid in the nurse's office until Mom came to get me. The principal called a meeting for Thursday. Both my parents had to come discuss how the family situation was affecting my well-being. I sat between them in those uncomfortable plastic chairs while they avoided looking at each other. The principal talked about resources and support systems. Mom mentioned the ethics complaint she was considering filing. Dad went pale. The meeting ended with nothing resolved except now the school administration knew our business too. Mom met with a lawyer Friday afternoon. Dad joined by phone, which seemed to defeat the purpose of them not being in the same room. I could hear Mom's voice from my bedroom, sharp and angry as she talked about professional violations and evidence. She'd already started documenting everything. Dates, times, credit card records, building a case. Friday night, I was scrolling through TikTok when I saw it. Ella had posted a video with text overlay. "When you lose everything because adults can't control themselves." The comments were already filling up. Someone wrote, "Your mom's a homewrecker." Another said, "I heard about this at my mom's work." 500 views in just a few hours. Our private disaster was becoming public entertainment. My phone started buzzing with texts from classmates. Some offered sympathy. Others wanted gossip. A few picked sides, mostly blaming Dr. Lauren. One message said my dad was gross for falling for his therapist. Another called my mom pathetic for not seeing it sooner. I turned off my phone, but the damage was done. Saturday, Dad moved into Riverside Apartments. 3 kids from school lived in that complex. I'd see his car there every day, a constant reminder. reminder. Mom helped by not helping. She made him pack everything himself while she documented what he took. For the lawyers, she said. By Sunday, Mom had recruited me to help remember details. When did Dad start acting different? What changes had I noticed? Did I remember specific dates? I felt like a witness in a case I never wanted to be part of. When I refused to write down any more evidence, she accused me of taking Dad's side. I'm not taking anyone's side, I told her. I just want this to stop. But it was only getting started. News came through the parent network that Dr. Lauren had taken a leave of absence from her practice. Both families were struggling with money now. Dad paying for an apartment plus his share of our house, the Laurens down to one income. The financial strain added another layer of stress to an already impossible situation. Mom spent her evenings building timelines and collecting proof while I hid in my room. The house felt like a war zone where I was both civilian and soldier, expected to survive but also pick a side. Outside, life went on like normal. Inside, everything had changed. The parent network buzzed with activity that week. Mom's book club friends began choosing sides at their regular Tuesday meeting. Catherine, who'd been Mom's closest friend for years, made excuses about needing to leave early. By Thursday, Mom received a text uninviting her from the group entirely. She threw her wine glass at the wall when she read it. I swept up the pieces while she sat at the kitchen table, face buried in her hands. Dad started showing up at my basketball games with newfound enthusiasm. He'd never been particularly interested in sports before, but suddenly he was in the bleachers every practice, cheering louder than necessary. Mom began attending too, sitting on the opposite side of the gym. The other parents noticed the tension. My teammates started asking uncomfortable questions in the locker room. I quit the team after 2 weeks rather than serve as a display piece for their competition. The chemistry teacher's alphabetical seating chart became my personal nightmare when Ella and I were assigned as lab partners. We spent an entire class period in suffocating silence, measuring chemicals and recording data without making eye contact. I noticed she still wore the friendship bracelet we'd made at summer camp in 4th grade. Mine was tucked in my jewelry box at home, but seeing hers made my throat tight. We both wore latex gloves, but our hands still managed to avoid touching even when passing equipment. Mom's obsession with documentation reached new heights. She created a detailed timeline of Dad's therapy sessions using our family calendar, credit card statements, and text message records. Color-coded sticky notes covered the dining room table. Red for confirmed appointments, yellow for suspicious charges, green for days Dad claimed to work late. She stayed up until 3 a.m. most nights, cross-referencing receipts with phone records. Dad's lawyer sent a cease and desist letter about the harassment and defamation. Mom laughed bitterly when she read it, then added it to her evidence folder. She'd started sleeping with the folder under her pillow, paranoid that Dad might try to steal it. I caught her checking the locks on all the windows twice before bed. One night I couldn't sleep and went downstairs for water. I found Mom hunched over her laptop, scrolling through Dr. Lauren's professional website and LinkedIn page. She'd printed screenshots of every certification, every professional photo, every client testimonial. The printer ran out of ink, and she actually drove to the 24-hour pharmacy at 3 a.m. to buy more. The school dance was approaching, the one Ella and I had been planning our outfits for since September. We'd picked out matching accessories and practiced dance moves in her basement. Now neither of us would attend. I donated my dress to the thrift store rather than let it hang in my closet as a reminder. Dad invited me for pizza the following Saturday, claiming he wanted to check in. He picked me up in his car that still smelled like the cologne he'd bought for his therapy sessions. Over pepperoni slices, he tried making small talk about school and friends. Then he slipped. He mentioned how Dr. Lauren had helped him understand himself better, how she'd seen parts of him that no one else ever had. The words tumbled out like he'd been holding them in too long. I pushed my plate away and asked if destroying 2 families was worth feeling understood. The question hung between us like a physical barrier. Dad's face crumpled, and then he admitted it. He was in love with her. The confession seemed to surprise him as much as me. Other diners turned to stare as I stood up and walked out, leaving him with the check and 2 barely touched pizzas. Mom retaliated by changing every streaming service password and canceling the credit cards Dad still used. She did it during his favorite show's season finale. He called the house phone 17 times that night. We let it ring. My grandparents arrived the next weekend, supposedly to offer support. Instead, they made everything worse with outdated marriage advice about forgiveness and working things out. Grandma kept insisting that Mom should have paid more attention to Dad's needs. Grandpa suggested Dad just needed a hobby. They lasted 2 days before Mom politely but firmly asked them to leave. I started escaping to the library after school. It was the only place that felt neutral, where I didn't have to pick sides or pretend everything was normal. One afternoon, I found Ella there too. We sat at separate tables for 2 hours, both pretending to study while stealing glances at each other. Neither of us spoke, but we both stayed until closing time. Mom's evidence folder grew thicker. She discovered Dad's therapy notebook in his home office drawer, the one he'd forgotten to pack. Page after page of processing feelings about Dr. Lauren. His handwriting got messier in later entries, like the emotions were too big to contain in neat lines. Mom photographed every page before adding the notebook to her collection. The holidays approached with all the subtlety of a car crash. Both families' plans imploded. The annual neighborhood Christmas party invitation pointedly excluded both households. Thanksgiving became a logistical nightmare of who would have me when. Mom's building this huge folder of evidence like she's some kind of detective, but I wonder if she's really just trying to keep busy so she doesn't have to think about what actually happened to her marriage. The decorations stayed in the attic. Nobody felt festive. Mr. Lauren filed a formal complaint with the state therapy board. The investigation into Dr. Lauren's license became official. Mom found out through the parent network and actually smiled for the first time in weeks. She added the complaint number to her timeline with a fluorescent pink sticky note. I learned from Ella's cousin that she'd known about the attraction for months. She'd tried warning her mom that Dad seemed too attached, that the professional boundaries were getting blurry. Dr. Lauren had dismissed it as transference, a normal part of the therapeutic process that would resolve itself. Ella had watched her mom light up during their sessions, stay late to talk with Dad, start dressing differently on appointment days. Dad panicked when he heard about the investigation. He called Mom offering to recant his statements about the emotional connection, to tell the board it was all one-sided. Mom recorded the call on her phone, adding his offer to lie to her growing pile of evidence. She made backup copies of everything, storing them in a safety deposit box at the bank. The library became our refuge. Ella and I were assigned a project on Julius Caesar, ironically about betrayal and its consequences. Working together broke the dam. We sat in the back corner behind the reference section and admitted how desperately we missed each other. We talked in whispers about how our parents' selfishness had stolen our friendship. We compared notes on the lies we'd been told, the signs we'd missed, the way adults could destroy everything while claiming to protect us. Presentation day arrived. We delivered a passionate speech about how betrayal doesn't just destroy the betrayer and betrayed, but all the innocent bystanders caught in the aftermath. We used Caesar and Brutus as metaphors so thinly veiled that our teacher shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The class applauded, but the sound felt hollow. The local newspaper picked up the story when Dr. Lauren's ethics investigation became public record. Prominent therapist faces ethics probe. Ran on page 3 with both families' names barely disguised. Mom bought 10 copies. Dad tried to get a restraining order against the reporter. Both families became the town's favorite gossip topic. I couldn't buy milk at the corner store without receiving pitying looks from the cashier. Dad showed up at the house one evening, claiming he wanted to work on the marriage. He stood on the porch with flowers, looking smaller than I remembered. Mom actually considered it for about 30 seconds before she noticed the cologne he was wearing, the same one he'd bought for his therapy sessions. She slammed the door in his face. He left the flowers on the porch. They stayed there until they rotted. Mom agreed to let him move back temporarily, but only for financial reasons. The mortgage and his apartment were draining both their accounts. She installed a lock on the bedroom door first. They slept in separate rooms and communicated through text messages, even when they were in the same house. I caught Mom crying in the laundry room, folding Dad's shirts like they were contaminated. The Laurens were attempting their own reconciliation. Mr. Lauren moved to the basement while maintaining the facade of a united front. Ella mentioned that her parents only spoke when planning public appearances. They attended school events together but drove separate cars. The pretense fooled no one. I discovered both sets of parents were coordinating their public appearances for legal and professional reasons. They showed up at parent-teacher conferences together, sat side by side at school assemblies, smiled for the yearbook photographer at the spring fundraiser. Behind closed doors, the war continued. The spring musical cast list went up. Ella got the lead role I was supposed to stage manage. We both quit rather than spend weeks pretending everything was fine. The drama teacher begged us to reconsider, but we walked away. Some things weren't worth saving. An anonymous email arrived in Mom's inbox with screenshots of Dr. Lauren's interactions with other clients. Nothing explicitly inappropriate, but patterns emerged. Lingering appointments, personal email exchanges, boundaries that seemed consistently fuzzy. Mom forwarded everything to the ethics board. I recognized Ella's writing style in the email's carefully worded observations. She was trying to help without directly betraying her mother. We met secretly at the park to discuss the evidence. Renewing our alliance in the shadow of the playground where we'd spent countless summer afternoons. We sat on the swings where we'd once planned our futures, now planning how to survive our present. Our parents discovered the meeting through Find My Phone. Both teens were grounded indefinitely. The punishment brought unexpected relief, a legitimate excuse to avoid school social events, to skip the awkward interactions with classmates who didn't know what to say. House arrest felt safer than navigating the minefield of public sympathy. The state therapy board confirmed that Dr. Lauren's other clients would be interviewed as part of standard investigation protocol. 3 families expressed concerns about professional boundaries, though none crossed clear ethical lines. The pattern was enough to establish a troubling precedent. Mom added this information to her timeline with satisfaction. Dad finally cracked during a mediation session. He admitted the physical relationship had begun 2 weeks before the concert, before Mr. Lauren's discovery. They'd tried to stop, he insisted, but the emotional connection was too strong. Mom secretly recorded the admission on her phone, tucked in her purse. The mediator didn't notice. The recording violated state law, but Mom didn't care about legal niceties anymore. Divorce papers were served on a Tuesday. After months of false reconciliation attempts, Mom finally pulled the trigger. Dad was at work when the process server arrived. His assistant called to warn him, but it was too late. He came home to find his belongings in boxes on the porch. The locks already changed. The custody evaluation began immediately. I had to choose a primary residence, an impossible decision that felt like betraying one parent no matter what I decided. The evaluator, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, assured me there was no wrong answer. I chose Mom but immediately regretted it when I saw Dad's face crumble during the mediation session. He aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Ella texted me that night. I chose Dad too. It was our first direct communication in weeks. We bonded over the parallel pain of divided loyalties, of being forced to pick sides in a war we never wanted. We started texting regularly after that, comparing notes on our parents' behavior, finding dark humor in the absurdity of our situation. Dr. Lauren's license was suspended pending the full investigation. Both families faced immediate financial crisis. Mom started clipping coupons for the first time in her life. Dad ate ramen in his apartment. The Laurens put their vacation home on the market. The life we'd all taken for granted evaporated like morning mist. I got a job at the local pizza place to help Mom with bills. The work was mindless, answering phones, boxing orders, wiping down tables, but it gave me independence and a small rebellion against the chaos at home. My manager, a college kid named Sebastian who'd heard about my family situation, let me pick up extra shifts shifts whenever I needed to escape. 3 weeks into the job, Dad walked in with Dr. Lauren. They were attempting a normal date night, oblivious to the pain their presence caused. They sat in a corner booth, sharing a large pepperoni and laughing at some private joke. My hands shook as I took their order, but I maintained professional calm. I served their pizza with a smile that felt like broken glass in my mouth. Dad's face when he recognized me behind the counter broke something inside him. He left a $50 tip on a $20 order. I donated it to the animal shelter. My coworker Catherine posted the encounter on TikTok without my permission. "You won't believe what just happened at work." She captioned the video of me serving my dad and his therapist-turned-girlfriend. The video got 10,000 views overnight. Comments poured in from strangers who had opinions about my family's drama. Both families scrambled to control the narrative, but the internet had already decided who the villains were. Ella and I met at our old playground, the one where we'd learned to swing and skin our knees and share secrets. We admitted that our friendship might be the only good thing to salvage from the wreckage. We made a pact to maintain our connection despite our parents, using burner phones bought with my pizza money. It felt like we were spies in our own lives. My grades plummeted. The early admission to my dream college was now in jeopardy. Mom found my report card and broke down completely. She blamed herself for ruining my future, for being too focused on revenge to notice I was drowning. I ended up comforting her, holding her while she sobbed apologies. The role reversal was complete. I'd become the parent, she the child needing reassurance. The jewelry store photo spread through school like wildfire. Sebastian showed me the screenshot during our shift. Dad and Dr. Lauren looking at engagement rings, barely 6 months after the divorce filing. My hands went numb holding the order pad. I dropped 3 pizzas that night, each splatter on the kitchen floor matching the mess in my chest. Mom found out through the parent WhatsApp group. She locked herself in the bathroom and ran the shower to cover her screaming. I sat outside the door for an hour, listening to water mix with rage. When she finally emerged, her eyes were empty. She walked past me without a word and started shredding old photo albums in the living room. Why would Dad try to buy forgiveness with a $50 tip after showing up at his own kid's workplace with the woman who destroyed their family? The jewelry store photo makes me wonder if this whole thing was planned from the start. Mr. Lauren's alienation of affection lawsuit hit Dad with papers at his apartment complex. The process server knocked during dinner with Dr. Lauren. I heard about it from a classmate whose dad lived in the same building. Dad called Mom 17 times that night, begging her to talk Mr. Lauren out of it. She turned off her phone and we watched cooking shows until 3 a.m., neither of us really watching. The deposition notice arrived for me on a Tuesday. I had to testify about our family life before the affair, answer questions about my parents' marriage under oath. The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and disappointment. I sat in that conference room for 3 hours, describing birthday parties and family vacations that now felt like fiction. Every happy memory became evidence. Ella's deposition happened the same week. We weren't supposed to discuss our testimonies, but we met at the library anyway. She revealed that Dr. Lauren had talked about her feelings for Dad with Mr. Lauren months ago. He'd begged her to refer Dad to another therapist. She'd refused, insisting she could maintain professional boundaries. The marriage was already strained from her long hours and emotional investment in clients. Our testimonies painted a picture neither of us wanted to see: 2 marriages rotting from the inside, using an affair as the excuse to finally collapse. My parents hadn't been happy for years. The Laurens had been sleeping in separate rooms since before Dad started therapy. We'd been the glue holding broken things together, and now even we couldn't stick. The judge ordered family therapy for the custody arrangement. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Therapy had destroyed everything, and now therapy was supposed to fix it. Our court-appointed therapist was a nervous man who kept adjusting his glasses. He tried to mediate between Mom's rage and Dad's guilt while I sat between them like a referee in a boxing match. Ella and I established our own support system. We met every Thursday at the library, supposedly studying for finals. Instead, we processed our trauma through whispered conversations behind the biography section. We created a shared document of coping strategies, everything from breathing exercises to escape plans for awkward family gatherings. Prom season arrived with all its complicated logistics. The school required parent signatures for tickets. Mom signed mine while muttering about Dad probably chaperoning with his girlfriend. She was right. The parent volunteer list included both Dad and Dr. Lauren. I decided to skip prom entirely, spending the night with Ella watching movies on her laptop in the park pavilion. Court date fell on what would have been my parents' 20th anniversary. Mom wore her wedding dress to court out of spite. Dad showed up with Dr. Lauren, who tried to wait in the hallway until the bailiff made her leave entirely. The judge looked exhausted before we even started, probably sensing the drama about to unfold. I testified about wanting relationships with both parents despite everything. The words tasted like ash. Mom gripped my hand so tight it left marks. Dad kept clearing his throat like he was choking. The judge asked if I felt safe with both parents. I said yes, even though safe was relative when your whole world had exploded. Joint custody with a detailed schedule that satisfied no one. Alternating weeks, split holidays, shared school events. The judge mandated co-parenting classes. Another irony that made Mom laugh bitterly in the parking lot. We'd need a spreadsheet to track my life now. Everything reduced to logistics and pickup times. Dr. Lauren accepted a plea deal with the therapy board. 2-year license suspension, mandatory ethics training, supervised practice when she returned. Dad stood by her during the hearing, holding her hand while her career imploded. Mom attended too, sitting in the back row like a satisfied spectator at a demolition. Both family homes went on the market to divide assets. I packed my childhood into boxes, each piece of nostalgia tainted by what came after. The height marks on my bedroom doorframe, the kitchen table where we'd eaten thousands of meals, the couch where we'd watched movies every Friday, all of it reduced to items in a moving sale. I found our family photo albums while packing, that beach vacation from 2 years ago. Everyone smiling, unaware of the timer ticking down. Dad's arm around Mom. Ella and I building sandcastles. Dr. and Mr. Lauren sharing a beach umbrella. The last time we'd all been happy, or at least pretending well enough to fool the camera. Ella me ayudó a mudarme a pesar de las objeciones de nuestros padres. We loaded boxes into Sebastian's borrowed truck while our families pointedly ignored each other from their respective driveways. Her presence made it bearable, proof that something good had survived the wreckage. We'd salvaged our friendship from our parents' selfishness. Graduation approached with military precision seating arrangements. The school created a detailed map to keep our families separated. Mom got the left bleachers, Dad the right. The Laurens were assigned the back section. I'd have 4 tickets, 2 per parent, no flexibility. The ceremony that should have been a celebration became another logistical nightmare. My valedictorian speech went through 3 drafts. The first was too angry, the second too sad. The third walked the line between truth and tact. I talked about resilience, about choosing your own family, about honesty being harder but healthier than comfortable lies. The principal approved it with visible relief that I hadn't written an expose. The anonymous donor news came through my manager Sebastian. Someone had paid my college deposit in full after overhearing him mention my situation to another employee. The donation came with a note about supporting young people who'd overcome family challenges. I cried in the pizza kitchen, surrounded by the smell of garlic and possibility. Ella's family received similar help from a community fund started by our English teacher. She'd noticed our Julius Caesar presentation, understood the pain behind the metaphors. Small-town gossip had destroyed us, but small-town kindness was trying to rebuild. Not enough to fix everything, but enough to offer hope. Last day of school arrived with its own complications. Yearbook signing became strategic navigation to avoid awkward encounters. Ella and I met in our old elementary school playground after the final bell. We sat on the swings where we'd first become friends, promising to stay connected through college. Geography couldn't break what parental drama hadn't destroyed. Moving trucks arrived at both houses the same morning. New beginnings in different neighborhoods, fresh starts that felt more like amputations. Mom had found a condo across town. Dad was moving in with Dr. Lauren officially. The Laurens were downsizing to a smaller place, everyone scattering like shrapnel from the explosion. I loaded the last box as Ella walked over from her driveway. We hugged in the street between our former homes, holding on like survivors of the same shipwreck. Our parents watched from their respective vehicles, probably wanting to object but knowing they'd lost that right. We'd claimed our friendship back through sheer determination. The drive to college took 4 hours. Mom drove while I navigated, both of us pretending the empty passenger seat didn't feel wrong. Dad texted about visiting once I got settled. Dr. Lauren had added a heart emoji to his message, which I ignored. The highway stretched ahead, leading away from the wreckage towards something unknown, but mine. Ella texted from her own college drive. We survived. I texted back, somehow stronger for it. Our friendship had been tested by fire but emerged genuine. We'd learned the price of deception firsthand, watched it destroy everything we'd trusted. In our futures, we'd choose honesty over comfort, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. The lesson had cost everything, but maybe that made it worth learning. My dorm room was small and empty and perfect. No history, no memories, no ghosts, just blank walls waiting for new stories. I unpacked slowly, each item a choice about what to carry forward. The photo of Ella and me at age 7 made the desk. Everything else stayed boxed for now. Mom helped me set up, both of us avoiding mention of how Dad should have been there too. She left after dinner, hugging me goodbye in the parking lot. Her tears were different now, sadder but cleaner somehow. We'd both learned to cry without drowning. That night I sat at my new desk and opened my laptop. A message from Ella waited, a selfie from her own dorm room, boxes everywhere, exhausted but smiling. Real smiling, not the fake kind we'd perfected during the divorce proceedings. We video called until midnight, comparing roommates and class schedules, planning visits, building our friendship fresh on the foundation of shared survival. The next morning brought new faces, new chances, new everything. I walked to orientation thinking about truth and consequences, about the price of honesty and the cost of lies. My parents had taught me exactly what not to do. Now I had to figure out the rest on my own. But I had Ella, and we had the truth, and maybe that was enough to start. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Like the video for more videos just like this.